You've had those periods where you're fasting and you're just not losing fat. In fact, sometimes it feels like you're actually gaining it, where you feel like you're losing muscle and at least not losing fat. Well, there's an interesting study that demonstrates that adding this strategy to fasting can increase fat loss, or at least norepinephrine stimulating fat loss, by 4 to 12x, not 4 to 12%, 4 to 12x. So by triggering this epinephrine response, we can get more out of fasting and maybe get past these frustrating periods where it just feels like fasting isn't working anymore. So in this video, we'll talk about a simple lifestyle thing that you can implement during a fast. Then we'll talk about a couple of different spices that you can use. And then we'll talk about an interesting lifestyle habit thing that you can do during your fasts that will dramatically increase norepinephrine. And it's definitely nothing you've thought of. And then lastly, we'll actually talk about something you can quite literally put on your skin that can leverage this same mechanism. So let's talk about this thing that you can do during your fast. That's simple. Okay, well, with this, we look at a study that was looking at brown adipose tissue. It was published in the journal Clinical Investigation. Now, brown adipose tissue, just so that you know, is a fat that is metabolically active. It's thermically active. So you have to think of it as sort of a radiator heater, okay? And it's taking calories that are in our body and fat that's in our body and dissipating it as heat. And we have it on the human body, and rodents have it on the rodent body. Like, it's existing, and it's a very real thing. So when that gets activated, you're just basically burning fat as heat without actually having to move. So what this study found is that just acute cold exposure, not a cold plunge, although that works too. So sitting in a cooler room during your fast at like 64, 65 degrees can actually induce brown adipose tissue or activate brown adipose tissue. Now, you could also crank it cooler, or you could quite literally just go in a cold plunge for a little bit and kickstart this. Now, I'm not a big fan of cold plunges because I think they're super stressful on the body if you do them too much, especially when fasting. So it might be as simple as just maybe just hopping in a cold shower, but really just cranking the thermostat down during a shorter fast. What they found in this study is that by just having a little bit of acute cold exposure, it increased norepinephrine 4 to 12-fold in the brown adipose tissue specifically. So this gets you that extra benefit out of fasting, which is really cool. Well, let's talk about the other things that you can do. But what if you're trying to get more out of a fast, you're frustrated with fasting results, and you don't really want to do any cold exposure? You'd rather just consume something. Okay, well, there's something called grains of paradise. Grains of paradise happens to be one of the most potent stimulators of something called the TRPV1 receptor. Now, cayenne pepper will do the same thing, but grains of paradise is a little more potent. You could make a tea out of it, you could put it in some water, you could add it to your coffee, you could add it to your tea, whatever. Okay, what this does is it stimulates this norepinephrine adrenaline stress response that's already activated during a fast. So when you are fast, it is a stressor. Remember, you're activating stress by not eating. So you have all these different catecholamines like adrenaline and norepinephrine, these hormones that are causing or triggering the fat cells to liberate because your body's saying, hey, I need energy, we're under stress. So that happens. So we can capitalize in a very similar way by using the cold exposure we talked about, but also causing a little stress on that TRPV1 receptor by having something spicy like cayenne or having grains of paradise. Some other things that might help you with your fast, I created a fasting bundle through Thrive Market. So all the different things that I like to eat after my fast, or even things that I add to my fast. So you can get really good quality cayenne, really good quality grains of paradise, other things, even green tea, things like that that I add to my fast through Thrive Market. But the cool thing is that is a 30% off discount link. So if you click on the link that's down below underneath this video, you'll get a 30% off discount off your entire grocery order from Thrive Market, not to mention a free gift. So 30% off, and it gets delivered right to your doorstep. So I recommend you stock up and do your whole grocery shopping so you can save that 30% on your first order. But again, if you click on that link, you can check out the different things that I would normally get, but you can also just shop around for yourself, do your regular grocery shopping, and check out that cayenne that they've got, check out good quality spices and green tea and things to add to your fast. So that link is down below. It's in the top line of the description underneath this video. Now there's another interesting thing you can do. Okay, this is wild. When you actually do breath work and you hold your breath, and you don't need to sit down for 30 minutes and do dedicated, Kundalini breath work or anything. I'm talking about just straight up simple breath work, Wim Hof method, something for 5 minutes, but mainly doing breath holds. So our brain is constantly monitoring our CO2 levels. When we hold our breath, our CO2 increases. And when our CO2 increases, it causes stress and it causes a surge of adrenaline. Okay. This adrenaline does the same thing in our brown adipose tissue. That's why if you hold your breath for long enough, you actually start sweating and getting kind of stressed out. It's not a small surge in adrenaline. It's life and death, really, as far as your body's concerned. concerned. But there's another thing that's happening, and one of the reasons it's so effective when we're fasting. When we are fasting, we have an increase in what's called HIF-1A, hypoxia-inducible factor. And this is something that triggers autophagy, it triggers fat loss, it triggers cellular repair, and it happens when we are under oxygen stress. When we augment that even more by holding our breath or doing breath work, we put ourselves in this wicked cool category of skyrocketing HIF-1A. So not only do we increase autophagy, but we're also getting this huge benefit that can increase the thermogenic effect within our brown adipose tissue. So I don't want to see a bunch of people that watch my videos walking around just holding their breath while they're walking. I'm talking about, hey, when you're sitting down, do some good breath work, maybe some rapid breathing, and then do some holds for as long as you comfortably can. Trust me, you're not going to black out just holding your breath. Your urge to breathe, your need to breathe is going to kick in, okay? I'm not telling you to do this underwater. Definitely don't do that. Now, I promised you a weird one, and this one might be the coolest one that I've come across yet. Okay, so we're talking about an interesting way to get more benefit out of your fasting. This is called the TRPM8 receptor, and it's activated cooling the skin, but you can do this with menthol. So have you ever used like Bengay or any of those topical things that create like a menthol-like effect and then you get that cooling feeling? Well, that's actually triggering these receptors that are very similar to the previously talked about TRPV1 receptors. So by doing this, you're really actually activating this cold exposure that is a little bit more site-specific and a little bit easier than just like going in a cold plunge all day. Now, I'm not saying I want to see people holding their breath smelling like menthol, okay? But again, it's one of those things where this can actually increase epinephrine to a specific area significantly enough to actually mention in this video. Is it game-changing on your fast? Maybe, maybe not, but there's not enough evidence to say how powerful it is. I mean, clearly we've seen in all kinds of applications that adding menthol to the skin is really good for pain relief. So it would make sense that there's a metabolic effect too, even if it's just subtle and enough to just maybe boost the mitochondrial health a tiny bit. Now, an extra thing that you could do to increase fat loss a little bit more on top of this is going to be by increasing the actual amount of energy that can be burned. So if you're doing all these things, a simple application of red light therapy can make a really big difference. And it has to do with cytochrome C oxidase. So you're increasing the ability of a single mitochondria to gather more oxygen and make more ATP. It does this because it increases the activity of cytochrome C oxidase, the main final step in the electron transport chain. This is not made up stuff. This is not weird biohacker stuff. This is science and basic biology. Our body gets red light from the wavelengths that are outside normally, but a lot of us don't get that. But we can concentrate it and actually help the mitochondria produce more energy. But what happens if you're producing more energy when you're not eating? Well, it's getting that energy from somewhere, isn't it? It's getting it from your stored fat, right? So this is a huge hack. So all these things combined, a little cold exposure, a little bit of grains of paradise, some cayenne, some red light therapy, some breath holds, all these things work and they're legit, especially when you stack them on top of the already existing stress of a fast. Now, what about the days that you're not fasting? Well, I made a video that talks about a simple thing you can do at breakfast that can lower insulin resistance 38%, literally. So that video's right here. I recommend you check it out. It's a cool breakfast morning trick that you can do. As always, keep it logged here on my channel. See you tomorrow.